and welcome to the Sound Off Show. My name is Linda Kirker. I host the program, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. I always appreciate it when you tune in, and once we get the program started and up and running, the phone number will be on the screen. We have a new phone number now that we're in a new location, and I invite you to call in with a question or a comment. In the meantime, I would like to start the program by just mentioning Booker T. Washington, an African-American man who rose above the trials and tribulations of many years ago when he was a young black boy and he was not permitted in the South to go to school. He had to carry the books for the white students. And eventually things turned around. God bless America for that. And he became such a successful man and such an example of what a person can do with the right attitude in this life to make change and to affect other people's lives and to even establish a college, Tuskegee College. I mean, this man was amazing. And just quickly, he was so inspiring. And a friend of mine is the founder of the Booker T. Washington Society, Ronald Court. And Ron gave me this little booklet and a few other things that I can share at another time. But the Booker T. way, I choose to use my initiative to commit to hard work, to own my actions, to organize my time, to serve others, and even to endure the tough times with energy, enterprise, and enthusiasm. What a great attitude. And that's how you get ahead in life, folks. Instead of feeling sorry for yourself and blaming other people, stop that and get down to work with your own life. Okay, that's what I have to say there. And in addition to that, Emerson Lynn, the editor of the St. Albans Messenger, had a recent editorial in the paper. And I'm rewording this, but the title was that the Republicans need to come to the middle. Well, I balk at that, and I'll tell you why. Unless you consider the middle, the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights and what the Declaration of Independence gave us, then, you know, if that's what you think the middle is, then I'm all there. But those are the principles, the founding principles of our nation, along with a strong work ethic, respect, ethics, private business versus government control of our country. Those are just a few of the basics. And anybody who isn't in those places, then they're the ones who need to come to the middle. So that's how I'm starting the program. Welcome to Sound Off. So with that, I would like to introduce my two guests for tonight. Coming back for, I don't know how many times you've been on the show now, Jim.
Quite a few.
Jim Billado from Bakersfield, Vermont. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you.
And to his left is John Nagle from Colchester, who is a candidate who is running for the state legislature for the first time.
That's right.
So good for you for that, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Glad to have you both here. I'm going to start by asking you what you would like to start with tonight. I'm going to try to follow your lead. Every now and then I step up and insert. But one of you was mentioning something earlier about the Black Lives Matter flags. Why don't we start there?
No.
Well, recently they've been putting it in a lot of schools, have been hoisting it, and it's below the American flag.
On the same pole?
On the same pole.
That is horrendous.
And my understanding that the only flag to be positioned underneath the American flag on the same pole is the POW flag. I think that all lives matter, not any particular race or any color. I do think Black Lives Matter, as long as well as everyone else's, but I do not believe that a political organization should receive the ability to hoist a flag there at any school.
What is that teaching our children? I mean, there could be, if that's okay, then who else?
Well, it's a political PAC. They are a political PAC since 2015. So they have a campaign agenda. They have a political agenda. So it's just like putting a Democratic flag or a Republican flag or anything else. But if you want to hoist it, fine. Hoist it on a different pole, not on underneath the American flag. I think the schools are being over politicized at this point. They're using the children to push agendas. Whether it's anti-gun, this agenda, that agenda. And they're not really teaching the civics, and they're not teaching what they should be teaching.
American history. Right. That is how what they're doing, indoctrinating our children in the schools, those are my words, into a way of thinking that runs counter to the founding principles of this country. Well,
the history part is interesting that you bring up, because nobody mentions how many...
Speak up.
Nobody mentions how many African Americans were congressmen and senators in the South in the 1800s. Okay, we had them in Alabama, South Carolina, Texas, I believe Virginia even had one. But if you actually go and do a little bit of history, you'll find that African Americans were elected into office as senators and legislators in the southern states, and they were Republican.
Oh, really?
The majority of them at that time frame were Republicans.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, back to the flag. If the Black Lives Matter flag can fly on a flagpole with the American flag above it, then what other organization can do it? They're an organization. They're a political organization.
It should not be going on.
No, nobody should be allowed to do that.
All you got to do is get enough signatures. You go around and get signatures. That's how they were able to hang it.
Are you serious?
That's what
signatures
they did.
From whom?
Whoever, I guess.
The public is supporting that school.
Yeah.
And
when I went up in Burlington, I was in the understanding that they got 450 signatures, so they were able to hang that. That's how they're doing it.
That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Seem to like to bypass laws and rules. You know, there's rules for flying a flag. One of my friends in one of the groups was bringing up. He actually left the group because he's up in Fairfax. He brought up the point that during the holidays they display the American flag, but the American flag is supposed to be brought down at nighttime. And if it's going to be flown at night, it should have illumination to the flag. And nobody does this. We have all these, well, we don't. In the towns, we have the American flags on the telephone poles. They should be illuminated.
Absolutely.
And if you're not, then that's just proper etiquette, flag etiquette.
Yes, and there are booklets, and there is a national guideline, if you will, as to how the American flag is to be treated.
Correct. And one of my friends in my group, Ryan Proctor, brought this up. And he got jumped. People jumped him over this because he was bringing up the point of proper flag
because they're uneducated and they don't want to bother?
Right. So once again, that's what he basically brought up. So you're just going to apply the rules or the etiquette that's supposed the proper way of representing the American flag, presenting it, and people got all over him on it, and I was shocked that people actually responded that way, because he's correct. At nighttime, there should be a light shining on the American flag.
Absolutely, that's just respect. Plus, it's the etiquette at the national level.
Right. We seem to keep on moving away from.
Well, and that's another thing that we need to be teaching our children. And as I mentioned to you, before the show started, that I'm working with a small contingent of people to establish another Liberty Camp for students, middle school age. One here in St. Albans and one in Rutland this year. We're going to have
Wow.
two.
That's great.
And,
That is
and
great.
we're going to be teaching them about the founding of our country, and it's going to be a fun thing for them, not only educational but fun. And one of the things we need to include is flag etiquette. And so that's one thing I'll put on the list. Yeah, I'm excited about it because I think we need our young people understanding the founding of this country.
Yeah, it's totally,
Or we'll lose it. They're the future of the country.
yeah, it's being erased every day.
And if they don't know the truth about the principles of this nation, then this nation, over time, a couple of generations at the most, will sink.
Yeah, I'm afraid it's getting there too fast.
Yes, it is. So what do you say?
Well, I think these kids are like sheep, you know, and these teachers are mentors. They're mentors to these kids, and these teachers need to stop pushing their politics on our kids. And if they do push their politics on our kids, I think they should be fired.
Well, here's let me speak to that for a second. I don't believe that all of the teachers believe in what they're being told to teach. But they, chances are, belong to a union. The union marches in step with the government. And this is a government program. Common Core is a government program as far as I can tell. And too many states were eager for money. Millions of dollars they accepted if they would agree to incorporate the curriculum of Common Core into their schools. And without, as I understand it, without even knowing what the curriculum was all about. Eager for money, okay? So, and Vermont was one of those states at the time. So we need to stand up and speak out, and that's why I do this show. That's why I like to have people who watch the show call in periodically with a comment or a question, and let's have a discussion. Let's fight back.
Yeah, people are afraid to fight back.
Why?
I don't know. I mean, what I've noticed is that there's a lot of people that are just way too passive. Okay, they're afraid to stand up and be indifferent to the norm, and the norm is wrong. So I've always been someone to blow the whistle. I'm not afraid to. I'm going to. People either love me because I'm honest or they hate me because I'm honest. But that's just the way it goes.
We owe it to our children to make sure that they are equipped when they march on through the school system and finally graduate, that they are equipped to provide for themselves and to make a gainful employment and be upstanding citizens.
Yeah, I agree. I think the school system should be a lot more unbiased about things, you know?
Well, I part of me wants to defend teachers to some extent, maybe not all of them. Some of them are probably in lockstep with what they're told to do and with the Common Core. But I understand that there are teachers that are not happy with it. And I've said many times on this show before, I'll say it one more time, I believe that they are locked, along with the students, in a system that has failed.
Well, I think I disagree with that. If you know, as a teacher, if you know you're doing wrong, you need to break ranks. Okay?
Well, then,
because of being a follower, the view never changes when you're following.
Well, that's true. And that's where the union comes in.
Well, it needs to break. You know, if it's doing detrimental to the children and to the system of education,
and to the country.
And the country, yes, I agree. The whole, it needs to change. And you need to break the ranks. You need to change what your viewpoints are. If you know honestly deep in your heart that what you are doing and following is wrong, then you need to stop it. Because you're destroying hundreds of children in the process.
Well, my intention is to contact someone within the state education system in Montpelier. I believe
Good
that
luck.
we currently do not have a Secretary of Education.
Maybe you should be.
They would love that. I would love to be.
I think you would do an awesome job.
Unions, one thing about unions, people that are in a union, they don't have to work hard. They make a list. You make the list. I used to be a Teamster. I used to drive tractor trailer truck for a roadway
So
express.
you were in the union.
I was in the union, and I didn't like it. I mean, I was always a hard worker. I was born in a roofing business, and by the time I was 10 years old, I was working, you know, and I went to work at Roadway Express, you know, and they'll send you out with a 48-foot trailer, and I would call them up at 2 o'clock and say, I'm empty. They'd say, no, you're not. I said, I'm empty. What do you want me to do? Oh, to call every half an hour. Okay, well, I would do that. So I would go do my pickups, but then everybody else was still peddling their freight. I would go pick up their freight.
Oh my God.
I would come back with a full 48-foot trailer of everybody else's pickups. The next day, I wasn't on the list. That they would work that guy, and they wouldn't work me. That's the way the union
Because
works.
you were too
Because I
productive?
was lower on the list. They've been there working there before me. They had seniority. And that's the way the union works.
Ah.
So I'm not a believer in the unions, and the unions in our schools are terrible. I mean, if you got a bad teacher, it's an act of Congress to fire them.
Yes, it is.
We don't have control. That's the problem with the unions. We don't have control of our schools. We need control of our schools.
Yes.
We don't have that.
Well, here's another thing about schools. This big push for consolidating schools. They're saying it's saving money, and maybe in some instances it is, because they can eliminate some duplication of services. However, I'm a big fan of local control of your schools. And when Act 60 came along, we lost a lot of ground. In fact, it was Act 60 in 1997 that prompted me to run for office. I was so against that.
Yeah.
And
I was against it too.
I just think we're losing the pride in our local community schools when they consolidate. Then all of a sudden it's not your town school anymore.
Yeah.
It's, you know, where you feel comfortable marching into the school, you know, the teachers and so forth. And maybe that's still the case if your school consolidates, I don't know. But you don't feel that ownership, that kinship with your town school.
Yeah, I understand that. And I think also people neglect their responsibility to make it to those school board meetings and their town meetings and getting involved. And those are how things have been changing so dramatically in Vermont, is there's not a large enough participation in your duty. Even though if you don't have any children in the school, you're still paying it in your property tax and your taxes. You have a say in the situation, and it's important to participate. Otherwise, you have this stuff running amok the way you do because you're not participating. So then when you complain about your taxes being raised, your property tax again, then
Where were you?
then yeah, you're at home complaining. You become complacent when you don't participate. The other issue that they were bringing up recently that was on the government access is that they're planning to do a property tax adjustment so that the people that are on the lower end of the spectrum is going to see a property tax raise, and the people on the higher end are going to see it lower. So it's like a flat tax, property tax for school situation.
You're talking by town, not by individual family.
Right. So they're going to try to make it all even to basically all in a bigger scheme to lower. This is just talk right now.
Well, what has happened? I can recall an instance in the recent past where the town of Georgia, where I live, school board was ultra responsible and level funded the budget for that year. The same year, Burlington increased its budget by 12%. We did the right thing, the diligent thing, but we had to cover their overspending.
That's ridiculous.
And that's what Act 60 is
Right,
about,
that's what it's
because
all
we
about.
lost
Yep.
the paying for your own school. That's where you get the due diligence. When that school board has to listen to their community because of the decisions that they've made,
Right.
they're going to be a whole lot more careful about spending their neighbors' money.
We bring it up to spending, what we were talking about earlier before we went on the air. So recently I was doing a different job, and come to find out, I'm not going to mention what I was doing and where I was doing it, but schools are using taxi services to transport children to and from school, from home to school, and from school to home.
This is the first I hear about this.
And they have accounts, and they're called school accounts. And Milton School District has it, Colchester School District, I think
Burlington, did you?
Burlington School District has it, South Burlington School District has it. And they're on a flat rate, which is probably higher than a metered rate, okay? And the cab drivers are getting a 40% tip. So you have a $20 fare, flat rate, the cab driver's getting an $8 tip, okay? And that's one way, and then back is another $8 tip. So it's $16 a day times 180 days in the school year, okay? At least that's what it was when I was a kid. It was 180 days. I don't
Yeah,
know
who
how many
knows
days.
today?
But so you do the math on that, and you look at, so you got $8, 40% tip for $16 a day in tips for a child. Great for the cab drivers, because cab drivers don't make a lot of money as it is. But that's an awful generous tip with somebody else's money.
But I never before, ever in my lifetime until now, heard of taxis picking up children at their homes and delivering them to school and then back again.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I see. I work on the roofs in a lot of schools, and I see cabs coming into the schools.
Really?
Yeah, I see it all the
Yep.
time. Yeah.
Why don't we know about this?
Exactly. So, I mean, if they want to, they're so worried about, Burlington's so worried about that 12% extra. I guarantee if you took those tips and brought them down to where they needed to be, like, 10%, 15%, the standard, you could just Google what's a cab driver get for a tip. 40%, that's almost half, 10 more percent, it's half of the cab fare.
But the tip is only a small part of the picture. Where did this concept come from to now have taxi cabs picking up children and delivering them?
Don't we have school buses that do that? I mean,
Don't we have parents?
Don't we have parents? I mean,
Don't we have neighbors?
I'm
that
not going
can
to criticize
take turns?
individuals. There may be legitimate reasons for each individual situation, but still, the tip is 40%.
I walked home from school, and it wasn't a short walk. I had to go up a big hill and through a farm.
With a backpack filled with books, through snow.
And it was good for me. It was healthy.
And some of them aren't cabs; they're like big vans.
Yeah,
vans. For the kids with wheelchairs and stuff. They have them.
So, do the taxi drivers own the cabs? Who owns the cabs?
Well, I guess it's individualist too, but the situation I was at, it's owned by a company. So, just so you'd like to know who's negotiating these contracts where they put in a contract a 40% tip.
So,
I mean, just the tip alone. I mean, I understand everything else, but the tip, that is a negotiable agreement. So, I mean, who sat down and said, hey, give them 40%. That's not your money to be spending. That's the taxpayer's money. So you add that up. You're talking about, it could be a sizable $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, not more.
So,
Somebody's salary.
If one of the schools or two of the schools who are doing this cabbing merge with two schools that are not, the people of the rest of the state have to pay for that expense, right? So I think it's time to audit the schools.
I agree.
I have proposed that to the governor. I proposed it to an auditor recently.
It's time to audit the schools.
And the
You know-
Agency of Human Services.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's a way to get rid of the surplus they have.
Well, we need to be
Yeah, they can give it to me.
diligent with our spending of other people's money. Some people are really struggling to pay their property taxes. Other people have had it up to here and have said, enough of this. We can afford to get out of here. We're some of the higher taxpayers in this state, but we're not going to be here to support this anymore because we're out of here.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that last time.
Yep.
We're losing 2,000 people or more a year.
Yep.
And those are the taxpayers.
And I see it, people are, when they retire, they call me to do a roof on their house. And they're, because they got to do the roof and they're going to sell it because they can't afford to pay the taxes anymore. Because they don't have the income when they were working, so they can't afford it. So they're moving to Tennessee or they're moving to wherever because they can have the same house there and pay $600 a year when they're paying $7,500 here for the same house.
Exactly.
And it's not right. I think when you hit retirement age, you shouldn't have to pay school tax. They do that in New York, I guess.
Really?
I guess when you're hit retirement age in New York, you don't pay school tax. But why is somebody retired have to pay school tax? The schools are wasting money, and there's something like 35,000 kids less now than there was.
30,000.
Yeah.
In 1997, we had 106,000 K through 12 students. Now we have 75,000,
Yeah,
I believe it is.
It'll jump up, though.
So why is the price
Pardon me?
going up?
It'll go up, though, within the next... We're bringing people in and paying them $10,000 to move here.
Yes.
So we're going to have more children.
And yeah, right. Well, we have a low birth rate in this state.
Yeah, I wonder why.
We now have another Planned Parenthood type. The medical center, Hospital of Vermont is doing abortions. That makes me so sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
A health facility
Yeah.
where you expect healing and life-saving,
And they're killing.
and they're taking the lives of babies.
Yep.
I just don't get it. And I don't like supporting it, and I got something bugging me. Anyway, a lot of things bug me. I was just thinking of another topic. A high school friend of mine, Bob Lizzie, and his wife live in Tennessee now. And I keep in touch with, it's been many, many years, but I keep in touch with several of my high school friends and back and forth on the internet. And Bob sent me a recent email. What do I have on my eye here? Something.
Your finger.
My finger. And an email a couple of days ago. And he said, Linda, I would like your opinion on this. He said, what you think I ought to do with what I've written? And I said, okay. So what he wrote about was his feelings about girls entering Boy Scouts organization. And he's so dead set against it. And I tried to find it before I left the house. I wanted to print it out, and it's disappeared. But I find, and I don't know if anybody else out there in TV land experiences this same thing, but I find that certain types of emails, whether they be Republican related or something else of that nature, and like this philosophy that runs against the current things that are happening, those emails disappear, or I'm not allowed to forward them. Somebody is playing...
Is this emails or Facebook stuff?
Emails.
This deal with girls in the Boy Scouts is going to cause a lot of problems. You got girls in the next tent at night. The boys are going to sneak over the tent. You know what I mean?
Well,
there's going to be issues. There's going to be a lot of issues.
They're probably going to have them in the same tent.
Boy Scouts. People say, why? Where does it say where girls can't join the Boy Scouts? In the name, Boy Scouts.
Well,
Cut and
They have
dry.
Girl
The-
Scouts.
Yeah, they have Girl Scouts. You know what I mean?
My classmate was a Boy Scout, and I was a Girl Scout. I was a Brownie Scout, and then I was a Girl Scout. Earned the curved bar, which was the highest rank you
I was
could
a
get
Cub
at the
Scout
time,
all the way through.
and was in the knot tying contest at the big armory. I tied 5 knots in 11 seconds. I offered several scout leaders over the years to go in and teach the girls how to tie the knots. Not one of them took me up on it.
Well, because they probably don't know how to tie it.
That doesn't matter. They could learn too. But anyway, this scouting thing, Bob said, you know, and I agree with him, there is a period in life when you're young that you need to discover who you are as a young man or as a young woman, okay? And to spend time with other young men or young boys and to do what boys traditionally like to do, fishing and camping and campfire and
Canoeing.
whatever, you know, canoeing. And the girls too. I mean, we swam and we tented and we earned badges,
Right.
you know, merit badges and everything. And it was you know, you have to have a period of time in your life where you learn to be who you are. And that gets destroyed. What's the word I want? I wrote something back to him and expressed my. Next week I'm gonna bring it in because it was so well said by him about you know, we're trying to mingle two different entities which blurs both of them. And we need to let young girls be girls and young boys be boys.
Exactly.
So there.
Right.
It's almost, nowadays, it's almost a crime to be a man, you know? You have to, you know, they want everybody to be a beta male, and I'm not a beta male. I'm never going to be a beta male. And and apparently the fact that I'm not, I offend people by it. So it's, oh well, you know, I'm just going to be me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't understand it. I went through Cub Scouts and Weeblos and did all the camping and all that stuff. And got
It
all
was
the
a
badges.
blast.
Yeah, I had a great time. I don't see what was wrong with what we had traditionally that we need to change it to where it is now.
It's the way to destroy tradition.
I couldn't do it because I had to work. I couldn't go in it, you know. I mean, maybe today people will think that's child abuse, but you know something?
Those were great lessons. Look what you've been able to do.
I learned a trade, and I learned a really good trade, and I do very well. And my dad taught me, and I don't know.
That's
I guess some people would say that's child abuse by making a kid work at 10 years old.
You mean you never had any fun in your life?
Oh, I had lots of fun in my life. I had lots of fun in my life, but I learned
Absolutely.
to work at a very young age.
So did
you know?
I. At home.
I had a huge paper route. So.
Yeah.
I worked in a bakery.
When I was 19 years old, I was my dad's foreman at 19 years
No
old.
kidding.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
He trusted you because he had trained you and he knew how good you were.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, nobody.
That's a compliment.
Nobody gave me any lip. I knew what I was doing at 19 years old, and I was his foreman.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, he gave you some skills and a way
Yeah.
to make a great living
Yeah.
and to provide
Yeah.
fill a need for people at their homes.
Yep. And then he died in 1995 and left his shoes, and I had to throw my shoes and get into his shoes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well, work is a good 4-letter word.
you know, it's a funny thing. You know, my dad used to talk to me about a lot of things, and I didn't understand why he was doing it a lot of times. You know, like he would tell me things like, because I used to go to him every Saturday, and he would say, you know, son, always pay your material. That's your first bill you pay. No, I take that back. Your first bill you pay is your help. Your second bill you pay is your material bill. Because without them, you don't have anything. And I always wondered, why is he telling me this?
Mm-hmm.
Why is he telling
Life's
me?
lessons.
You know, but I think back at it now, you know, I learned by him talking to me. Because I rode in the truck with him every Saturday out measuring work, you know, and all my friends were all having fun. And I was with my dad measuring roofs on Saturdays, you know, but I was learning. And I didn't realize it at the time.
No, you don't. You don't.
You know, it's kind of bumming. I wanted to go hang out with my friends, go trout fishing or whatever, or deer hunting or...
Well, I wanted to go with my friends when I was 11 years old to the Saturday matinee movie at the next town over, but I couldn't go until I earned my 50 cents allowance. Right. And in order to do that, Friday night, my mom gave me my to-do list. And I was up early Saturday morning on a mission to get my work done so I could collect my allowance so, you know, I could go to the movie with my friends.
Right.
And that's how life works.
Right.
You earn your keep in life, right?
Yeah.
So, John, any particular on your platform for your campaign, any particular things that you're letting people know that you...
I'm pro-gun, and I've had rallies against the S-55 and S-221 bill. I'm looking, if I get in office, I'd like to get in there and try to come up with some kind of legislation where family court is gender neutral. And being a single parent, I raised my daughter by myself for 17 years. I'm a good example that not all fathers are deserters. And my ex-wife is a good example of not all mothers tell the truth. And so I want the courts to stop leaning always towards the female gender.
I see.
Because they do that more than they should. And
the facts need to stand for something.
Yeah, the truth needs to stand for something. I mean, look, I can't give birth and I can't do breastfeeding, but I still raised my daughter 17 years by myself. And the courts have a tendency to side with the female person more than they do with the man. And I just think that needs to get revamped. It needs to go a different direction.
Fairness.
The fairness. You know, the fact that I'm owed over $107,000 in back child support and they don't do nothing. I mean, I've lived it. I know I have to struggle and fight with them all the time.
Does she still have a driver's license?
Yeah, as far as I know.
If that was you, they'd take your driver's license.
Oh, it gets better than that. They said Vermont Child Support Enforcement said they weren't going to do nothing. She's down on her luck, and that's that's kind of funny because on Facebook she's bragging about going to Aruba for the second time, you know, and it sounds like she's really hurting. The other things on my platform is this minimum wage thing is a joke. Okay, because it's going to gradually go up to $15 an hour. It really doesn't help anybody. It just puts more stress on the companies and the business. I'm all for everybody making more money, don't get me wrong, but it's never going to keep up with the inflation that we have. And if they bump everybody's wages up and everybody's happy with that, then they should be anti-tax because the more tax that they're going to apply means less money you're going to make. If you go up to $15 an hour and you think you're going to be making more money, wait till you find out that the new tax bracket that you're in and how much you're going to lose. Okay, so there's a lot of talk from Montpelier that sounds good, but when you actually apply the math to it and the realities to it, you're going to find out it's going to hurt you more than it's going to do you good.
As the worker, yes. But at the same time, some of these small businesses, and we know like 90% of the businesses in Vermont are small businesses,
yes,
who they may not be able to afford to keep all the employees they have if they have to raise the wage up higher.
Right. So watch the prices go up at McDonald's and Burger Kings and Wendy's. The prices are going to go way up on everything.
Well, the price.
You stop there to eat, and it's going to
they're
cost you.
already putting in little order things. They're doing away with them.
That's right. That's right.
So they have no workers' comp tax on those machines. They have no health care,
right.
and they have nothing that they have to pay extra other than the actual cost for the machine. And
So
wiring it in.
You place your
right.
order yourself and it's delivered to you, or you go up to the counter when you get a notice and you pick it up.
Correct.
And they've done away with several of their employees to do that because they can't afford, as you say, to pay the health care and the salary and everything else.
Workers'
And the
comp
other
insurance.
side of this is, what is there that says, well, there are some people who say this, but you earn what you have trained yourself or educated yourself to earn. In other words, everybody doesn't need to earn the same amount.
No, but when I was on here last time, we were discussing the minimum wage thing. And
Speak up a little.
what we brought up about the minimum wage last time I was on, and what I brought up, the point was self-worth. So as a welder, I've been a welder for 30 years. And you get certifications and you get a lot of training involved, okay? Started welding when I was 16 years old. And you come into it as an entry-level welder at $15 an hour. And if you're going to see somebody over at McDonald's or Burger King making $15 an hour, you're going to say, hey, I have all this extra training, I have this certification, I should be making more. Mm-hmm. And then that's just going to go domino effect uphill. Because everybody who's above you is going to want to get more than what you're making now. Mm-hmm. And it's just going to be this domino effect that nobody looks at. Because everybody in the world has some sense of self-worth. Mm-hmm. And if there's going to be jealousy involved, if somebody new getting hired at $15 an hour, I've been here 5 years, they're only making $1 less than me, okay? Yeah. Or they're making $2 more than me.
That
and
creates
I started
friction.
Right. Great. Yep. So there's going to be a lot of animosity. There's going to be a lot of, it's just, I don't see it working well, okay? And by the time it gets to the $15 an hour, that what they're passing or discussing, did it pass?
I don't think so.
I think it passed. I thought it passed. Maybe it didn't. It got vetoed. Is the reality is by the time it is there, they're going to want more than that because, what was it, 3 years or 4 years? It's supposed to be $15 an hour.
Right.
I mean, the cost of living could change dramatically in 2 years. You know.
The bottom line for me on this is that government has no business telling private businesses how much they have to pay their employees. If I'm an employer and I want to hire people, when people come in to interview for a job, I evaluate them, what their experience is, what their education is, blah, blah, and then I decide what I want to offer them for an hourly wage.
Well, the market also creates what it's gauged at.
Yes.
So similar businesses, if they're paying $12 an hour, you're going to either have to pay $12.50 or $13, or you're not going to get anybody.
But if you're right, but at the same time, if someone comes to apply for work with me and they have no experience, they have no certificates or any education in the field or anything, then they're not as valuable to me.
No.
So why should I have to pay them the same as someone who comes with,
Oh, absolutely. And you would expect that if you take somebody in and train them and teach them, you're going to want to develop or expect some sort of loyalty from that individual.
Yes.
Because you invested time and money and training into them. So right now, it's really hard, as Jim was saying, finding somebody to work for you. Oh. Because they either have a monkey on their back or a needle in their arm.
And that's a fact. That's a fact. Just finding somebody with a driver's license today is next to impossible.
You mean because their license has been suspended?
No, they've been suspended for one thing or another, or whatever, never had one, or these kids that you hire out of high school today, they can't even read a tape. I mean, it's like, how do you graduate high school and you can't even read a tape? I just don't get it. I don't get it. For what the schools are costing us,
yeah,
there's no reason that a kid should graduate and can't read a tape
So
measure.
Why don't we go to some school board meetings and ask some questions?
They call you a liar.
What do you mean? The facts are the facts.
Mm-hmm. And they don't like being challenged.
I've hired 2 kids lately, and neither one of them could read.
What do you think they have police?
Neither one of them.
Neither one of them could read a tape.
Can read?
Read a tape measure.
Tape measure.
Read a tape measure.
Yeah.
How do you not read a tape measure?
What's 11/16? It's like
They have no clue. You have to tell them, cut me a board 22 inches and 3 little marks.
3 little marks.
3 what?
Little marks.
3/16.
Oh,
3/16.
oh, jeez. Honestly.
That's a fact. I'm telling you. Kids are graduating today and they cannot read a tape measure.
Well, we have...
Or convert to decimal.
And
they can't make change.
and they can't figure out a percentage if you're having a sale. I have a friend who used to hire high school kids to come into her store and work like on the weekend, and if she had a 30% off sale, they couldn't figure it out.
Well, I think today kids don't really have to think because they use computers and calculators.
And that is the worst thing.
They don't have to think.
You don't learn to use your brain.
That's right.
What happens when the electricity goes off and you still have to do your job?
The long division.
They'll never figure it out.
Hours of long division I used to have to do.
Oh, yeah, and multiplication on the whole page. Absolutely.
I remember those days.
But that was good.
The old math was so much. This new math that kids are doing today, it takes them 3 times as long to figure something out.
I know.
It's really dumb.
Well, I would love to sit in on some of those classes.
If you did, they'll be doing good. But it's when you're not there is what you need to see.
When we talk about education, I always feel compelled to say that I know that there are some great teachers out there.
I'm sure there is.
But if they want to keep their job after all these years of working, even though the system of educating has changed, they have to play along.
But when you bring something up at a school board, they pretty much tell you're a liar. You know. I got a friend. I have a friend. His daughter is in 4th grade, Essex schools. And the teacher asked the kids, I'd like you to pick an American president and write something about him. And his daughter picked Donald Trump. And this teacher says, not in my classroom.
That's
My friend's up in arms. He was mad. He went to the school board and everything. He didn't get anywhere. He didn't get it. That teacher should be fired. Donald Trump is our president.
Yep.
And that teacher said, he's pretty much not my president. Well, you know something? That teacher...
Out of here.
Out of here.
I agree.
That teacher should be fired, cut and dry. That you can't. The unions, see? Unions will protect him and allow that to happen.
That's wrong.
And that's wrong. And that kind of stuff is wrong. And this is what's going on with our schools. You know, these teachers are all Bernie followers. Bernie Sanders is...
Not all of them.
A lot of them. They're Bernie's. They work at the school. They all got Bernie stickers.
They're
in their
self-righteous. That's what they all are. Well,
Bernie will go right off a cliff, and these kids are sheep, and these teachers. They'll follow Bernie right off a cliff. Look what they just did to Burlington College.
Oh yeah.
Burlington. Those people at Burlington College are just like sheep, and Bernie's wife brought them right over the edge. Boom, just like sheep, and destroyed Burlington College.
Yeah. Well, she, as I understand it, she colored the facts about how many millions of dollars had been contributed.
I think she used Bernie's campaign
to the bank.
People. The people that were donating to Bernie's campaign, she used that. I think that's what happened.
I don't know, but
I was to the understanding that's what she did.
But
the money wasn't coming. That she told the banks, if you did that or I did that, I think we'd be in handcuffs and we'd be going to court. We'd be in trouble.
Well, welcome to Hillary land.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we can change that.
Yeah.
So let's see, what else do we have here? There are, okay, here are some things that are national issues.
Okay.
1, we need our borders secured.
Darn right.
Yes.
We don't have a country without a border.
Absolutely.
Recently, over the weekend, there's a finding of a child trafficking rape camp in Arizona. And right now, it is a very fluid situation. I have friends that I'm connected to nationally. And there was the Ohio militia was sent out there to do perimeter security on there. They're finding hair dye coloring stuff, child's toys, blood, knives. They asked for cadaver dogs to come out there because they think something really heinous is happening out there in the desert. They're digging in the sands and they're finding all kinds of articles of clothing.
Are these immigrant children?
They're not sure if they're American and or immigrant or a mixture of both. So Arizona and Tucson area is one of the largest areas in the country that missing people are called. And they found a plane ticket of somebody who's been missing out there. So there's some serious and nefarious things going out there. And if that doesn't tell you that we need our border wall, I don't know what else to tell you. What they're claiming so far, that's been on the internet, is that they're MS-13 and drug cartel that are doing this. And certain individuals in the law enforcement has been looking the other way on this and knew this was happening. I don't know how factual that part of it is, but this, like I said, the story is very fluid right now.
Well, Sheriff Arpaio, when he was the sheriff in Arizona,
yes,
he did one whale of a job.
Yeah, he did.
And that's why so many people hated him, because they didn't like that he was doing the right legal thing.
Right.
And
called following the law.
yeah, exactly.
You know, my mother lives in Southern California, and in the deserts. You know, of course they fly around helicopters all the time, and they find 5,000 to 6,000 Mexicans that look like a raisin that try to walk across the desert with a jug of water, and it's 120 degrees in the shade. They don't make it.
Look.
But they find them. They find them with a helicopter.
What we have to realize is that we are a country of laws. We have a process for immigrants to come to this country legally. And if people who want to come to this country don't abide by our laws and respect the laws and respect our people enough to do it legally, then they don't belong here.
They don't belong here.
No, I agree.
And we need to go back to the old days of the Ellis Island, where my grandparents came into this country, and they had to have a sponsor where they could live.
Yep.
The sponsor would help them find a job. They would house them and feed them until they got on their feet. They taught them the language. And speaking of that, we need to make English the official language of our country. Other countries have English as their official language, and we do not. This is absolute nonsense.
You know, Winooski School, their teachers, they have to teach 30 different languages in Winooski School.
Well, why do you think the cost is so high, $19,000 on average per pupil?
That's why we're paying so much. That's why.
Well, learn English. They shouldn't be allowed in school until they learn English. And whatever group brings them here, whether it's a church or whatever group brings these children into this country, needs to be responsible for teaching them English before they can enter our school.
That's right.
Period.
They should.
Still think I should be the head of education?
Absolutely. I have no issue with that. I mean, my maternal grandparents came here from Manili, Sicily, and they learned English. They had to.
If you want to hold down a job and be self-sufficient, then you need to know the language.
Absolutely.
And if we insist and if we insist that they have to learn English, then we don't have to. Our governments, federal and state, do not need the extra expense of printing so many documents in foreign languages.
And
That's just another
interpreters that they have too.
Another expense, absolutely. When are we going to wake up and smell the roses?
Well, here's the other thing too. You have an interpreter, and how do you even know what they're interpreting is correct?
Exactly.
I think the Republicans care about the laws, but the Democrats, they don't. They don't
well,
care
I'm
about
sure
the
there are
laws.
some Democrats who care, but in general,
they don't care.
I just read, which I'm going to bring to a meeting on Saturday. I just printed out the Vermont Republican platform. It's great. Look it up online. Vermont GOP, and then go to platform. I'm going to make a copy for each of the people at this gathering on Saturday. There are 32 states that have made English the official language of their state. This is not one of them. And when one of my letters to the governor, I suggested that this is something
He'll never do it.
that we need to
He'll
do.
never do it. He'll never do it.
Who's going to stand up and speak out? We're down to 5 minutes, young man.
Yeah.
So if there's anything that's burning in your mind or heart,
You can't change and fix the world while neglecting your own country.
absolutely.
And we constantly neglect our country over and over. The same thing here at the state. You know, the governor signed these laws in, and it does nothing to secure our schools at all. These gun laws, those need to be changed and reverted back or amended so that they're null and void to the point.
What people don't understand today, the reason why we're free today is because of guns.
Yes.
What people don't understand, when the Japanese wanted to attack us, the Emperor of Japan wanted to attack us here. His general says no.
Too many people.
They have a thing called the Constitution. Every house has a rifle. We'll be shot at behind every tree. We need to hit them financially. So they hit us in Hawaii, and they took out our ships and our planes, and they did hurt us financially. But the Emperor of Japan wanted to attack us here, and the Constitution is what kept them from attacking here. Every house had a gun.
Yep.
That's the reason. And people need to understand that's why we're free, is because of guns.
Well, there are people who will use every excuse and every opportunity to blame guns for something that happens, so that because their mission, their goal is to disarm the American people. And
Then we'll be sheep.
we have, yes. Well, when government gets so big and so controlling, you have no control over your own life,
Right.
because government takes over.
Then that's communism.
I got one thing I want to add
Go
before we end
ahead.
it.
Go ahead.
If you're out there flying a flag and you have it out at night, get a solar light and put it up and shine it on our flag. So show respect, show some etiquette to the American flag. Get a little solar light, shine it up there. Make sure that the Old Glory is being illuminated at night.
A lot of men died protecting that flag.
Absolutely. A lot of sacrifice has been made
A lot of
under
sacrifices.
that flag. But when you say a solar light,
Yeah, you get those little solar pods. You stick them in the ground and direct them right towards the flag.
the ones that absorb the sunlight in the daytime, do they shine at night?
Sure.
Oh, okay. So much for that.
It'll work.
Well, we need to get back to being proud of our country, being proud of our Constitution, being proud of our American flag. These fellas on the football field, they ought to be fired, as far as I'm concerned.
I would fire everyone.
Just don't burn American flag in front of me.
I think that they need a lesson or two. They're making probably millions of dollars under that flag, and they don't respect it.
That's what they would get a lesson if they did burn a flag in
Well,
front of me.
don't go making threats. Well, we're down to about the last minute and a half or so.
If you can't vote for me, you can still donate to my campaign at John Nagle for Colchester 92.
This man will make a difference.
Yep. We need more like you, more people who are willing to stand up for what really counts in this country, to give people opportunities and to feel proud of their country and to have a strong work ethic to contribute. We're down to 1 minute. John,
Common sense.
Common sense. Thank you so much for running for office. The best of luck.
Thank you very much for
Folks
having me
in
on.
Colchester, vote for John Nagle. And thank you, my friend Jim, for coming on the show again. And folks, I thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I hope you tune in every week. Next week will be another interesting show with interesting people. So good night. I wish you the best of luck. Fly that flag proudly. And I'll see you next week.
If you keep
Good
it up,
night.
don't take it down. Yep.